So today I brought you here to talk about things that have no right being as good as they are. I think the best example of this, it's not my favorite, but it is probably the most widely understood one, is Star Wars The Clone Wars show. Because if you really think about it, coming off of the prequels. Now, if you're a prequel defender, that's fine, but you cannot sit here and tell me to my face that like Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace are like brilliant masterpieces, well received by everybody.
Look, they aged really well because of everything that was built around them. If it wasn't for
Exactly.
Clone Wars, the prequels would still be absolute garbage, except maybe for Episode 3, because Episode 3 was actually halfway decent.
Yeah,
But yeah, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, no, they're just not good. But they are good because of everything built around them,
yeah,
especially Clone Wars.
I don't even hate the prequels, but like you cannot in good time just look at those two movies and go, "Yep, that was good. I can get behind these two movies."
Yeah.
Um
It's average. It's average at best. I'll call them
yeah.
average movies, but like, you know, yeah.
Yeah, so then you come off of those, right? Which is already a disappointment, coming off the original sequels. And then you get the Clone Wars movie, which I Star Wars The Clone Wars is my favorite not visual media, what am I trying to think of? Film media, I guess, of Star Wars ever, but the movie struggles. The first movie really does struggle. It's not very good. So you have all of
Nah.
those things.
You have
I don't,
Jar Jar Binks. I don't know, man.
I don't think anybody was expecting anything good out of this show. And then like 7 seasons later, it's like hardly regarded as one of the best things
Like
to
one of the
ever come
best
on.
shows like ever.
Just
Yeah,
ever, yeah. So
yeah, ever.
that had no business being as good as it was. In my personal opinion, it's still my favorite Star Wars like show to ever come out. Um, and the prequel movies are not my favorite movies. So
Yeah.
it
No, well, when you think about it like that, I can see your point because I Um, I heard about Clone Wars from another friend, and it's like, oh yeah, it takes place like within like between episode 2 and 3 is how it was explained to me, and I'm just sitting here like, I don't know, man. It like so I saw the first half of the Clone Wars movie with my parents. They didn't care for it, but they let me watch the rest of it because they just like animation style just really wasn't for them. And I thought it was cool. I watched it like, okay, wait, hang on. What age did you watch Clone Wars at? When did you start watching it?
start watching it. That when did it come out? I genuinely do think it was from whenever it came out, because I don't remember. Actually, it probably was in
2000.
2008 because it was still back when I lived in Washington, and my dad would go downstairs and run on the treadmill for a bit, and I would sit down there and we'd watch cartoons. And I specifically remember that Star Wars The Clone Wars was one of the things we would watch. So it might have been since it came out. I'm not sure though, because I was really young, but it
I mean,
might have.
2008. You got to be like what, 3 years old or
Yeah, I was
something?
3, so it might have been
Yeah.
since the beginning, to be completely honest.
Okay. I started watching it when I was like, gosh, I want to say when I was like 11 or 12 is when I started watching it. Started with the movie and then completely forgot about it for like 2 months afterwards. And then I saw that there was a show. And I was like, oh, they made a show out of the movie. And I'm sitting there, and then somebody told me this, like, actually, no, it's not how it works. But like, yeah. So there was a show, and the show exists, and it it's interesting to hear you say that it doesn't deserve to be as good as it is because it's like isolating it. It's actually brilliantly done.
Yeah,
Like I've watched like in so many aspects that like we would have to have like a whole like 3-part episode series on like 3 podcast episodes just on every aspect of how great the Clone Wars is. But like I think the most video essays I've seen on the Clone Wars have been in regards to how the villains are constructed and how they redeemed the Ahsoka character.
Yeah.
Because I remember um, when I was first watching it and Ahsoka was, there, she was really annoying to watch, and I'm just like, does this character have to exist? Why, please? She's so whiny and she doesn't listen to Anakin at all. It's like, it's painful. It's so painful to watch, and then they redeem her later, and it's perfectly constructed, and it's really good. It's really good, and you're right. Coming off of the prequels and being based within the prequels itself, it doesn't deserve to be that good. It really doesn't. Um, because they used like they actually did justice to everything that like didn't get enough time in the prequels
Yeah.
itself, like giving Grievous like actual gravity and the whole thing with Darth Maul existing within the series. I mean, I'm one of those kids that just loves everything that Darth Maul is in because Darth Maul. It's just one of those deals. I don't know what your favorite arcs in that show is.
I like Maul.
I think
Maul is epic.
Maul's epic. The Umbara arc had that specific arc. The Umbara arc had no right to be as emotionally impactful as it
If
was.
you're not gonna watch anything of Clone Wars, but you just want to get like the best of it, just watch the Umbara arc. It's the only
Yeah,
thing I think that any Star Wars fan needs to watch, because I understand the Clone Wars is kind of a long haul to sit through with 7 seasons
yeah,
of it, especially since at the beginning it's not like the masterpiece it turns out to be. But if you're gonna watch anything, watch the Umbara arc, because that is just peak show.
yeah.
Period.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Peak. It's probably just like one of the greatest arcs in show history. Period. And like that's a bit of a stretch to say. I know because there's a lot of shows out there, but I love it because I remember sitting there watching it, and then shortly after I watched it, my sister started watching it with me, and so I had to restart the whole show because the only time I was able to watch it was when she was able to watch it. So then we actually finally got back to the Umbara arc, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, what just happened?" And I'm like sitting there like, "I know, right?" Like, absolutely incredible. It's so it's just perfect. I also like how the politics in the show itself is so fleshed out and almost realistic in a way.
Yeah.
Like the way in which the ebb and flow of the political regime within that show is very um it makes sense
Yeah.
the way in which it's all constructed and how it moves throughout the show, how it affects things within the show itself. And there's a lot of things in the show like that get turned into political matters, like stopping the production of clones, which then leads to like whether or not clones are actual living beings that are like rational sentient beings like human beings, because
Yeah.
that's a whole deal within the show. um that's actually the main point of the Umbara arc too, one of the main points even. So yeah, but by far, yeah, I agree. If you ever watch anything of Clone Wars and you just want the best bit of it is Umbara arc.
Yeah.
Just yeah, absolutely. Was it 4 or 5
I
episodes?
think it's 4.
4 episodes? Yeah, best 4 episodes in the whole show.
And
Absolutely.
I would say that another thing about the Clone Wars, I think again it doesn't have any right to be as good as it is that it suffers from both being a sequel and a prequel. It's actually a double prequel in the sense that it's supposed to take place before the thing that comes before another thing. And usually with prequels, you at least get to come up with a starting point, right? You might have to
Yeah.
get to a specific end place, but you can start from a place where then you can unravel things. But if you really think about it, Clone Wars doesn't even get that because it has to start from Attack of the Clones. It doesn't
Yeah.
even get its own starting point. It is
Well, that
based
makes it easier in some sense because it has a starting point that's already given to it.
in
The
some
hard part
ways,
is then, like, actually doing it.
yeah, but
There is
it's
something from actually starting it and then the momentum from the start carrying through the rest of it.
yeah,
So it's kind of like a half start.
yeah. It didn't have a lot going for it, so it's really impressive that they managed to pull out what they did.
Yeah, it's true. Um, Shoot, man. So Clone Wars, wow, that's a crazy example. Just go right in there with it. It's funny because a lot of things, honestly, a lot of things in my viewpoint don't necessarily need to be as good as they are,
Hmm.
or like made to be as good as they are. There's a lot of things that really don't that really shouldn't be as good as they are. Um, but in the regard that like most things just shouldn't be,
Yeah.
because just as a principle of existing, that's how I view things. But I I think that in regards to uh, children's media, because honestly, if you're gonna tell me that Clone Wars is a children's show, it's not a children's show. Come on, it's so much more mature than
I
that.
have this gripe with stuff because it's either like a children's show or like an adult show, and that's so annoying because I think there should be like I feel weird because it's like I think whenever people say teen show, they think of like romance dramas or high school stuff, but
Rom com, yeah,
realistically,
yeah.
I think there is a place to be said that there are a lot of things that like I wouldn't say that it's an adult show. I feel like that's misunderstanding, like what Clone
Oh, it's
Wars
not an
is.
adult show. No, 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 no.
But again,
It's
it
not.
gets way too dark to be a kids show. Like
Yeah, it's
it's
not
a
like you can put, like most 8-year-olds in front of it and expect them to like thoroughly enjoy it.
yeah, it's not really either. So I think that's kind of like it's an in-between zone. And it works well because basically that means that anybody can enjoy it. Like, it's small enough scale to the point where, children can just be like, "Oh, the shooty shoot go boom boom." And enjoy that, and then like older people can actually enjoy the story and characters. And
Because it starts out under the pretense of a children's show. You know, like my brothers are watching the first few seasons right now, and I'm rewatching it with them when I can. And I'm rewatching the first one or two seasons, and it's the first season to the first like season and a half, maybe the first two seasons, is set up under the pretense that it still can be considered a kids show
yeah,
within this very popular franchise, which by nature of being popular would entail that there's some kind of uh, um, precedent that should be not precedent. There's this idea that because of how popular it is, it should be much more appealing to a much more general
yeah,
mass, which would entail children, because you can market this kind of stuff to children with certain stuff, like toys, or games, right? Um, or Legos,
yeah,
but um, the as the show progresses, it gets steadily more and more emotionally intelligent and like practically intelligent too, to be
yeah.
honest, because that honestly I credit that show as my beginning of understanding how politics actually works.
Hmm.
Like, I know that's really weird to say, but I really credit that show with kickstarting my interest in like how politics really makes the world go round, or rather how it doesn't, because in some cases it just doesn't. But it's one of those things where, but it doesn't. It's not like it just jumps straight from being a kids show into that kind of much more intelligent show. It does make a steady progression into becoming that,
Yeah.
and that's really what I enjoy most about that series. And that's why it actually can be marketable for all ages. Um, but in my opinion, it should start. You should start watching the show when you're like a little bit of an older child, so that you can grow with the show more or
Hmm.
less. It's a weird thing to say, I know, because growing with the show, it sounds kind of silly, really, but it is one of those shows where you have to be a certain age and have seen certain things to appreciate certain things to a certain level. Like, my brothers don't get certain aspects of the show so far because I think because of their age. But whether that's actually relevant or not isn't entirely the issue. because even older people could sit down and watch this show and, for the most part, fully enjoy it. I think.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think that's actually the it actually that might be um, why I would agree with your statement. I don't necessarily think that the Clone Wars doesn't deserve to be as good as it is, um,
I
in as much as its existence. But
yeah.
I think that in regards to its influence and construction and how how easy it is to understand it, how easy it is to understand the world that it builds, that part I don't think deserves to be as good as it is because
Yeah.
oh my gosh, is it good?
Yeah, to me, whenever I say something that something doesn't deserve or have a right to be as good as it is, what it is to me is that it's kind of how do I phrase this? It's that nobody should have expected it to be as good as it is, or it like went above and beyond. It's something like to take two other examples. I don't think Avatar: The Last Airbender is a show that is better than it has any right to be because it's completely original. There was no real reason to doubt that it wouldn't be good from the beginning because it was good from the beginning. It didn't really have any holdbacks. I guess you could argue that it's like doesn't have a right to be good just because it's so good. But to me, that's not really that. That's just a good show. That's just
Yeah,
like a really good show. Whereas something like Ninjago, while not being amazing, I do think I wouldn't classify it as a show that's better than it deserves to be, but I think in its early seasons it does go above what I would expect. And
yeah,
realistically that's what it is. It's things that go above what I would expect of them
hmm,
significantly. So the Clone Wars does that just because, coming out of the prequels and even after those first two seasons in the movie, it's like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. And then it just
yeah,
gets really good really fast.
hmm,
And
and
Ninjago
then
too,
yeah,
it's like, just sell the children the little Legos. And then while it's
yeah,
not like a
but
master class show, it's enjoyable. It has some weirdly hard-hitting moments, so it's like it's better than I thought it would be. So it
yeah,
it definitely goes beyond what it needed to be.